Hello, all good people of the world. This is Paul Whittakin returning to you today with the Universal Law of Numbers code, otherwise known as the 369 code. And what I'm going to do is briefly explain that what the Universal Law of Numbers code does, what the 369 code does. It basically gives us an alternative way of looking at this thing that we refer to mathematics. And it's something that is very easy to understand. It's for regular people. In particular, it can be very helpful for people who are turned off of mathematics in the formal schooling system, the institutionalized way of teaching mathematics, which just results in a lot of confusion and once again people being turned off by it. What this diagram represents is a law of mathematics. But it's also a law of nature, and what I would say is these patterns represent things that we experience in life itself. Now, math can become a weaponized, and it really is, because people who are teaching it to you are often teaching it to you so you can use it as a weapon against the rest of us in an institutionalized setting, whether it's the government building bombs or weapon systems, whether it's the pharmaceutical industry creating all of these concoctions that, whatever, I won't even go there, but we know a lot of people are dying from drug overdosing on these prescription medications, and our television is nothing more than a pharmaceutical industry commercial propaganda system. With a little bit of intermittent programming in between. So, the other thing is our country is very much run by these usurers, and they use this mathematics or people's lack of understanding thereof to basically, pile up mountains of debt so that the country and its citizens are constantly in some sort of a web of debt that they can never seem to get themselves extricated from. But anyway, so what this mathematics shows us is it shows us these patterns, and they're recurring patterns, and I refer to them as codes, but they're just the patterns that we have in the universe, okay? And basically, the pattern starts by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the first pattern is recognized because the next number following 9 is 10, which is 1 plus 0, and that's a 1, followed by 11, which is 1 plus 1 is a 2, followed by 12, which is 1 plus 2 is a 3, etc., and so on, and that goes to infinity. And if we square numbers, we come up with this recurring pattern, which I refer to as 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, which is the 369 code, because the 369 code is, it basically, what it is it's the other codes are always going to result in the 369 codes. Now, all of these are codes. For instance, that line going across on the top is a code, as are all of the other lines that go across. But these are the major codes, and this is the 369 code. It's the numbers 2, 5, and 8. It's the numbers 1, 7, and 4. If we combine them, we're going to get 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1. And we also have 181 and 818 is another code. But there are other codes, secondary codes as well. 2 and 7 adds up to 9. That's a code. 3 and 6 adds up to 9. That's a code. 4 and 5 adds up to 9. That's a code as well. If we look at 2, 5, 8, that's 7 and 8 is 15. 1 and 5 is a 6. So 2, 5, and 8 represents a 6. 7, 1, and 4, or 1, 4, and 7 represents a 3, because 1 and 4 is 5, and 7 is 12, and 1 and 2 is 3. And 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, if we add those together, we're going to get a 9. And it's a very important fundamental fact that this number system that we have in our universe follows a very specific principle. The principle that it follows is if we take any number, no matter what it is, no matter how many digits it has, and we add all those numbers up together, and then we reduce them, we're going to come up with a number between 1 and 9. So whatever that original number is, if it reduces to a 1, it is a 1. It will behave like a 1 because it is a 1. If that number is, for instance, 73, 7 and 3 equals 10, 1 and 0 equals 1, then 73 is a 1. If it's 37, it's a 1. If it's 82, that's a 1. If it's 91 or 19, that's a 1. And I can just show you how that works. But in any case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 1 and 6 is 7, 5 times 5 is 25, 2 and 5 is 7. 6 squared is 36, 3 and 6 is 9, 7 squared is 49, that reduces to a 4. 8 squared is 64, it reduces to a 1. And that's why we have these numbers here. If we were to cube them, take them to the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th powers, going on to infinity, we will come across this recurring system of numbers. And that's what I refer to as the 369 code. And it's a universal law of numbers, universal law of mathematics. It's a law that's given to us by the universe. And I prefer to, perceive these numbers as my friends, because if they're friends, then they certainly will be very good friends for you. Okay, so we'll just get kind of started. And here I have the codes again. And what I'm going to show you is that, just quickly, 248751. 248751. Okay? So that's where the 248751 comes from. And no matter how we mix up these numbers, whether we're adding them or subtracting them or multiplying them or dividing them, they're always going to give us the codes. So these are the numbers going across without the 9s. And we see the codes because we see 487512, 248751. We see here in purple 784215, which is 248751. And we also see them going across 147741, 181, 181, 174, 471, 157, 248. That's 248751. And we always are going to get the 2, 5, and 8, and the 1, 4, and the 7, and the 1, 8, and the 1. And if I multiply these numbers against each other, then I'll come up with this number I've written in brown. And that's going to be the 248751 code as well, with 2, 5, and 8, and 1, 4, and 7, and 1, 8, and 1. And we can just look at this first line. 1 times 4 is 4, 4 times 7 is 28, 2 and 8 is 1, 7 times 7 is 49. 4 and 9, that reduces to a 4. 7 times 4, 28 is a 1. 4 times 4 times 1 is 4. And we will see that we have the code recurring again, and it's going to be 248751. Let me put it up there. 248751, 181818, 487512, 181818, and 487512, which is 258 and 471. And it's also the 369 code. And that's what the 369 code does. It gives us an understanding of what people in our world refer to as mathematics. And in particular, today I'm going to demonstrate how the 369 code is geometry. Because what the 369 code does is it always gives us perfect symmetry. So I'm just going to breeze through this today, and I'm just going to show you diagrams to illustrate what I mean, and you don't have to pay any particular attention to them. You will see that we're going to arrive at these geometrical patterns. And one of the beautiful things about the 369 code, as compared to the way we are taught mathematics in formal education, is there's really nothing to memorize. It's just recognizing the patterns, because the 369 code gives us these recurring patterns. And these patterns are very important because not only is nature a system of patterns, the universe itself is a system of patterns, and I like to say that life itself is always a system of recurring patterns, and if we recognize those patterns, it's very important for us to conduct our lives, because when we see that the numbers are not following the sequences, then we know that something is out of balance in our own personal universe. But that's just 181 and 818, which is one of the codes. And here's another way to look at 181818. And all I'm trying to point out is that we have symmetry going on here. And symmetry in mathematics is geometry. Because what this geometry is showing us is it's following the 369 code. For instance, this would be an equilateral triangle and would have three 60-degree angles, and 3 times 60 is 180, and 1 plus 8 and 0 is 9. So geometry is the 369 code, and this is where it comes from, and it will always be the 369 code. If we have 4 90-degree angles, that would add up to 360. If we were to multiply those numbers, we would also come up with 9. 3 and 6 is 9, because anytime we have a 9 and we multiply it by any other number, it's always going to be a 9. And if we add the number 9 to a number 9, it's always going to reduce to the number 9, whatever that number is. And here's just some more to demonstrate what I'm doing. You can see that we're arriving at these geometrical structures. And they can be very intricate, and these are just examples of them. They're just examples to give you, an idea of how the symmetry works inside of the 369 code. It gives us geometry. And this geometry might be more interesting for many people, because this geometry shows patterns that we can recognize, and we don't have to memorize these formulas, and we don't have to take the square root of 2 or the cosine and the sine. And we don't have to do any of that. We can just connect the dots of these numbers together on the grid, and we will arrive at geometrical patterns that are giving us the 369 code, and they're always going to reduce to the number 9. Because the 369 code, it reduces to the number 9. Because in essence, it is the number 9. And the number 9 is the guiding force in the universe. It's the guiding force of what we refer to in our lives as mathematics, and it gives us the 369 code. And there's some more with 1, 4s, and 7s, and there's some more of them. And I will just kind of keep on showing them to you. So in this box, it's a 4. In this box, it's a 7. Down here, these are 1s. And if we connect them, we arrive at these kind of arrangements. And there's some others with 1, 4, and 7. And there's a lot with 1, 4, and 7. And here I included the 9, because the 9 does not change anything. It's sort of like a 0. And here's with 2, 4, 8, and 7, 5, 1. Which is 5, 2, 8, and 1, 4, 7. And if we connect the 9s together, there's all kinds of geometric arrangements we could arrive at there. And now I will just kind of show you some symmetry that happens when I just fill in the numbers, the boxes with different numbers. But we can see we're always going to have some sort of perfect symmetry. And as you can see, when we look at these, we have these symmetrical arrangements. The numbers, they always place themselves in a symmetrical, perfect form. Here we have 7 and 2, and we can see the symmetry in that one, as we do with 4 and 5 as well. And we can go to other arrangements, because 4 and 1 is a 6, so what those are, they're all 6s. And here we have with the 1s and the 8s like that, and that's a symmetrical arrangement. I'm sure we can connect those together and get all kinds of triangles. And we can do the same thing with the 8 and the 4 and the 1, which I've done with these right here. And now I will just kind of do some of the arithmetic that is associated with these. Okay, so here we have a 1, and we have the 417, 417. Obviously, 1 multiplied by that is going to give us 417, 417. And if we add them together, we're going to get 5, 2, and 8. 1 plus 4 is 5, 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 7 is 8, so that's 528. And over here we have the 248751 code, and for instance, if we add 1 to that, we're going to get the 258 code, and we're also going to get the 369 code. And the same thing applies to an illustration like this. If we multiply this 7 by this row of numbers going down, we're going to get 727272. And obviously 1 and 8 is a 9 as well as 7 and 2. If we multiply 7 by the 248751 numbers over here, we're going to get the 248751 code back, 248751. And I'll just show you some different ones. By multiplying or adding, we're always going to receive the codes, and that's the point. 4 times 4 is 16, that's a 7. 4 times 1 is a 4. 4 times 7 is 28. 2 and 8 is a 1. So we get 7 4 1s there. And the same thing applies there. We're going to get the 1, 4, and 7 code back. And here if I multiply, let's say, this 2 by this row going down and this 2 by this row going down, we're going to get the codes. Because what are we going to get? 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 7 is 14, 1 and 4 is a 5, 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 7 is 14, which is a 5. If we multiply the 2 by the 2 4 8s, we're going to get 875124, which is 248751. 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 1 is 1, 2 times 5 is 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 5 is 10, which is a 1, 2 times 7 is 14, which is a 5, 2 times 8 is 16, 1 and 6 is a 7, and 2 times 4 is 8, and we get that 248751, 248751. And that's all I'm doing, and we won't do that with each and every one, but we will see that we're always coming up with these codes. It doesn't matter. Here we're going to get 174s because 7 times 4 is 28, 2 and 8 is a 1, 7, 4, 1, 7, 4. And I did it with multiplying it like that on that one. And here I'm showing it to you a little bit differently. But it's always the same thing because we're going to come up with the codes. And I'm just adding them in that case. And the 248751 code is the 369 code, 369. And here's some more examples of that. And that's all I'm doing today. But there's many, there's an infinite number of possibilities of how this whole thing works. But the point being, if you recognize the patterns, you will see that we're always going to arrive at 2, 5, and 8, or 1, 4, and 7, or 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, or 1, 8, 1, 8, 1, 8. And it always boils down to the 369 code, because that's what it is. And I'll just show you a couple more of these, and I'll finish up for today. Here I'm doing it with the 5s. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 8 is 40. So we get the 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4 like that. If we want to do it with the 8s, 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 8 is 64 is 1. Or basically 8 plus 4 is 12 and 2 is 14, and that adds up to a 5. So 842 is a 5. If we square 842 and reduce it, we're going to come up with a 5. If we take 842 and add it to 842, well, 5 plus 5 is a 1, so 842 and 842, that would be 1684. 1 and 6 is 7, and 8 is 15, and 4 is 9. 19, and 1 and 9 is a 1, because 5 plus 5 is 10, 842 plus 842 would have to be a 1 as well. It would reduce to a 1. And here I'm just showing you some of it to arrive at the 369 code. And we're just adding the numbers. 4 and 8 is 3, 7 and 5 is 12 is 3, 7 and 8 is 15 is 6, 4 and 2 is 6, 1 and 8 and 1 and 8 are 9s, and we get 3, 6, 9. We get 3, 6, 9. And that's the 369 code. And there are different ways of coming up with the 3s as well, but it will always be a symmetrical arrangement, as you can see. And the 369 code is also 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, 2 and 7 is a 9. No matter how many times we work with the 3s and the 6s, if we add them together, any number that reduces to a 3, 2 of those would be a 6. If we add another number that reduces to a 3 and add that to the bunch, then it would come out to be a 9. And that's the beautiful thing about the universal law of numbers, because it's actually, in fact, universal. Because universal means it's a universal language that we can all understand, and it never deviates from its actual underlying principles. And that's what makes it a law of mathematics. It's not a theory at all. Here, in this case, we're getting 9s and 3s and 6s like that. And I'm adding these numbers up together, and I'm getting the 369 code, and I'm getting the 258 code. But we also have the 741 code, because we have 147, 741. 174, 471. Even down here, 147, 741. It's always going to be like that, because it's the 369 code. And I'll just show you a couple of more, and we'll finish up for today. And here we're getting the 181 code in that fashion. But we're getting all of the codes, really, because we're getting 248751, and we're getting 471, and we're getting 258, and we're getting 181818, and that's the code. As we get the 181818 code by doing it like that. And we'll get the 181818 code doing it like that. And here I'm going across, and we're multiplying. 4 times 4 is 7. 8 times 1 is 8. 7 times 7 is 4. 5 times 4 is 20. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 7 is 14 is a 5. So we get the 248751 code. And we can do it looking at it like this. So basically what it does is it gives us the perfect symmetry, and that perfect symmetry in reality is geometry. It's the same geometry that Pythagoras talked about and Euclid explained to us about, but I'm just showing you this geometry in simple numbers, and it's the same exact thing. And I think people who have any kind of artistic inclination can use these numbers and these patterns to create art that is pleasing to the eye, as well as musicians can use these numbers, because the musical note system is also the 369 code, and if you follow the sequences, you will be able to create music that is pleasing to the ear. And here's some more of the 369 arrangements. And this is a 258 arrangement, and 258 is basically 2 and 5 is 7 plus 8 is 15, so that's a 6. But if we go 258 plus 258, since it's a 6, it will have to give us a 3. And here, that's another way of looking at 181818, as is this. And that just shows you how you can come up with a geometrical arrangement with the 2, 4, and 7s. And here's a couple of 6s. 6s work like that. What do we have here? 8 and 7 is 15, and 5 is 20, and 1, that's a 3, right? 15, 21, that's a 3. And these are going to be, oh, I see what, 8 and 7 is a 6, 5 and 1 is a 6, 8 and 7 or 7 and 8 is a 6, 2 and 4 is a 6, 1 and 5 is a 6, and 4, 1 and 7 is 3, and 4, 1 and 7 is 3, so 3 plus 3 is a 6. So this thing that we refer to as math, it's really not, it doesn't have to be that confusing system, geometry or whatever, calculus, algebra, they're all very beautiful and, it is math. Obviously, that is math, and you can use that for many things. But for people who don't want to, learn trigonometry and all of the trigonometric functions, etc., you can see by just using this universal law of numbers matrix, you will get the same thing because you will get the results that are always the perfect symmetry, and you might be able to have a deeper understanding of what this thing is that we always referred to as math in school, that they weaponized and used against you and me as well. And I think they were wanting to teach it to some of us just so we could, become institutionalized ourselves and use that weapon against others, for the benefit of the warmongers and the users and the pharmaceutical companies or whatever, poisoning our world, or industry to poison the air, poison the water. But in fact, this weapon can be used for the good and to create things of beauty in our world. And if nothing else, if you begin to understand it, then it can be a defensive weapon as well, because you won't be as vulnerable to be taken advantage of, by the usurers with your car loans and your home loans and all of these usurious systems that we have in place by these globalist, elitist, 1% usurers. And I hope you learned something today, and I will leave it with that. My name is Paul Wittekind, and I'm checking out now. I wish peace and happiness to all the good people in the world.